Well, hello. I am Matt Williamson. How's everyone doing? I'm at Williamson NFL. Look me up there on Twitter as well as my YouTube page. Two things to discuss today. The schedule is coming out Wednesday at 8 p.m. There's been some leaks. We're going to talk about that in the second half of the show. But first, the Steelers signed from rookie minicamp veteran corner Anthony Averett. It's not a huge move, guys. I mean, he was a fourth rounder in 2018. Bama guy, Bama defensive back, Raven connection. He's 29 years old right now, a little bit undersized, but he is fast. He tested faster than he looks on tape, but he's twitchy, leaner, but he moves pretty well. He's played very little with three different teams over the past two seasons. I mean, 0 NFL snaps in 2023. But he did play quite a bit for the Ravens. During that, 4 years he was there after getting drafted. It was okay, but he was certainly kind of the guy you picked on more than you avoided, that's for sure. And he's almost exclusively been an outside corner for Baltimore. So he's not probably the slot answer, although he's built a little bit more like the slot. So in a way, he's a little bit like Jackson, who the Steelers got from Carolina, in that he's a skinnier outside, looks like a slot, fast. I mean, Jackson's much better, of course, but Averett doesn't make a ton of plays, isn't real strong. I mean, he's a leaner dude. And he's a bad tackler and a somewhat unwilling tackler. Now, hardly playing for the last couple of years. Could he reinvent himself as a slot? Can he stick his face in there more? Could he be more physical? Maybe. He's never played more than 14 games an entire season, and that was clearly his high water mark. I mean, either injuries or just not being active, that type of thing. He did play a fair amount of special teams as a gunner early in his career, but very little of late. So what this feels like to me is even a little bit lesser version of what the Steelers have been doing at wide receiver. Let's just add another body that has been around and has made money and played in the NFL. And if there's, two dogs, one bone type of thing, like we talk about all the time at wide receiver, not all those guys are going to make the team, but whoever impresses the most will just throw a bunch of stuff at a fan and something will stick, you hope. Or send him on his way. He's certainly not even guaranteed to make the team. So I do think some of you, and I've gotten some questions from you guys, thought, oh, they signed their slot corner, problem solved. I don't think so. Maybe he'll play some slot, but that's not his specialty. This is a cheap move. This is a bottom of the roster move, to say the least. So not real exciting, but wanted to clear that up for you. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports, from Major League Baseball, golf, NBA, and NHL playoffs. All the latest news, stats, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, as mentioned, schedule comes out Wednesday night. I will actually be on DVE doing a live show. Come check that out for schedule release at 8. So we know at home the Steelers, of course, are going to play Ravens, Bengals, Browns. They also have Dallas here, Kansas City here. Those are good teams to have here as opposed to on the road. Chargers, Giants, Jets will all be here. On the road, of course, they'll play Baltimore, Cincy, Cleveland. But they also go to Atlanta, Denver, Indy, Vegas, Philly, Washington. So a couple things I just want to throw out there is when the schedule is released, a couple things to kind of take note of. And I'll probably go over it some tomorrow as well. But for you guys, I would look at what are the fun destinations? Can I get to Vegas? Can I get to Denver's a pretty cool town from what I understand. Indy's drivable, Philly's drivable, Washington's drivable. And does that mesh with my schedule? Just the fan fun part of it all. Certainly around here, one of the first things I check is this going to interfere with holidays? Because the wife doesn't love that, especially Christmas. Halloween and things aren't as big a deal anymore. The kids have moved on. But I definitely do check holidays. Now, let's kind of dig into more football stuff. I've told you this several times that by current Vegas win totals, the Steelers are facing the toughest schedule in the NFL right now. Doesn't sound awful, Commanders, Falcons, Broncos. But when you add it all up, especially considering those three teams in the division, the average projected win total for the Steelers' opponents is the highest in the league. Some things that I always pay attention to, but we'll make it specific to these teams. Here's a small one. I think I mentioned it yesterday, but if not, I just want to reiterate it. We know Baltimore is going to Kansas City for Thursday night, opening night, first game of the year. I don't want the Ravens the following week. I always feel bad for the team that has to go play the Super Bowl champs. Not feeling too bad for the Birdies, but hopefully they go 0-1. But I just don't want to give that team 10 days rest for week 2. So hoping the Ravens are not the week 2 opponent with, long rest. One thing I always look at, no matter what, this isn't a Steeler thing, but you don't want to go to Miami, Jacksonville. Miami's certainly the worst, but big time heat games to start the season. Because, yes, that's hard no matter what. But none of these players, Russell Wilson, Broderick Jones, TJ Watt, whoever, is going to be in perfect football shape. Because the preseason, they are not going to play 60, 70 snaps in a row. Every NFL player week 1 and 2, at least, takes a little getting used to. And if you got to have a heat game, that worries me a lot. I always pick the road team in those situations. Like Miami the first month of the season, great. But you look at this, their road games, Atlanta, Dome, Denver, not a heat game, Indy, Dome, Vegas, Dome, Philly, Washington, and then division. None of those are, Florida. So I don't think we have to really worry about that. However, go look at the Broncos' record in history in September. It's almost worse going to the thin air of Denver to start the season than it is to play in 102 degrees in Miami. So I'm really hoping the Steelers do not have to travel to Denver early. So, of course, you also have to pay attention to the bye. I think you don't want it too early. You don't want it too late. Definitely look at rest. And Warren Sharp does a tremendous job of breaking down every team in the league's rest. The different situations you'll be in. 3 road games in a row. One thing that's really hard on teams is a night game, either a Sunday or Monday night game, and then the following week you have to go on the road. That's really asking a lot, especially a Monday night game, of course. Where do the Thursday nighters fit in? They home or they away? I think traveling on Thursday night is really tough on a team too. And a couple other theories, though. I love playing teams that have rookie head coaches very early in the season too. I just think as a rule of nature, they're kind of swimming upstream a little bit, getting used to being the guy in stadiums, as coach says. And just off the top of my head, Chargers, Falcons, Raiders had an interim last year, and Washington all have new head coaches, but they all were coaches before. So it's not like it's the hot young coordinator that's never been a head coach before. I think Harbaugh will handle it just fine. So that doesn't really apply to me in this situation all that much either. Even the Raiders, he's a young coach, but he was the head coach for the second half of the season. Then there's also a theory, which I basically agree with, is do you want to play rookie quarterbacks early in their career? But I also think you could, or in their season. And I also think you could make the argument, well, maybe you want to play them at the very end of the season because they're all beat up. They haven't ever played 17 NFL games before. But I think I'd prefer to get rookie starters early. And by the looks of things, Denver. But we just said we don't want to play them early because of the high air and the altitude. Washington. Okay. If Washington was the week 1 opponent, I would think Jalen Daniels might be swimming a little or heart beating out of his chest. And I don't think this applies, but I threw the Colts in there too because Richardson, I think he only appeared in 5 games last year off the top of my head, and he's young. But he's had that year in the league. He's had the offseason. He's been in stadiums. So I don't think that really applies either. So there you have it. I mean, I just think there's a couple things to look at when that when that schedule comes out that not every fan does. And hey, I'm kind of jealous of you guys. I just look at it like, hey, when do I get to go to Vegas? When do I get to go to Denver? When do I do that? Travel and go to road games just for fun. But those things are always of note to me. And those are a couple things I'm going to keep an eye out when I see the schedule for the first time. And we'll discuss that more tomorrow. So take care. Over and out.